Hi, sorry. So I just had to find um my microphone because my sound is not very good. So I have to speak very close. So I was reading through Romans 16, and I was reading through a book which has helped me a lot. I don't agree with everything the person who wrote it, there's a Bible study on Romans, says, but they do have a very good historical insight. So a lot of the things I might read it, I might not. um, are just ideas because the last chapter is actually um, naming a lot of people that Paul knew. And so we don't really have, about a lot of them, we don't really have a lot of background information. Um, but these people give kind of a historical insight and just give ideas. And so I thought that it was a little bit interesting. So if I have time, I'll try and get through it. So it says in Romans 16:1, I commend unto you Phoebe, our sister, which is a servant of the church, which is at Cenchrea, that ye receive her in the Lord as becometh saints, and that ye assist her in whatsoever business she need of, hath need of you, any business she have need of you, for she hath been a succorer of many and of myself also. So she's helped Paul and she's helped other people. So what was going on here is when I was in Palestine, this brought to mind as I was reading it. In this book, it says we apply for a new job. We usually get a reference from someone who knows us well and who can pay tribute to our character and ability. In the past, it was often the case that people going to live in some strange town took with them letters of introduction from those who had contacts in that town. In the ancient world, such letters were very common. They were known as sustaikai epistolae. So epistolae, they call the letters in the New Testament epistles sometimes. So I think epistolae is the same. Letters are of commendation or introduction. We still possess many of these letters written on papyrus and recovered from the rubbish heaps buried in the desert sands of Egypt. A certain Mysterion, for instance, an Egyptian olive planter, sends his servant on an errand to Stototus, a chief priest, and gives him a letter of introduction to take with him. And so the letter says, Mysterion to his own Stototus, many greetings. I have sent my blastus to you for forked sticks for my olive gardens. See then that you do not detain him, for you know how I need him every hour. To Stototus, chief priest at the island, that this is a letter of commendation to introduce Blastus, who's gone upon an errand. So Paul writes to introduce Phoebe to the church at Rome. So when I was in Palestine, I would have to go, I was given money and sent with one of the young, I would say teenagers, he would help me carry um, fruits and vegetables, bread and things so that I could prepare breakfast for the guests in the morning. And I was given a piece of paper with something written on it, and I was told that in this instance I actually didn't go with money. I was just to give them the paper, and then they would fill up bags for me and send me back. And so whatever it said on the paper was obviously saying who I was and kind of letter of commendation, so to say, what I was doing and not to keep me too long. So Phoebe came from Cenchrea, which was a port of Corinth. Sometimes she is called a deaconess, but it is not likely that she held what might be called an official position in the church. There can have been no time in the Christian church when the work of women was not of infinite value. It must have been specially so in the days of the early church, in the case of baptism by total immersion, as it was in the visitation of the sick and the distribution of food to the poor. Women must have played a big part in the life and work of the church, but they did not at that time hold any official position. Paul organizes a welcome for Phoebe. He asks the people at Rome to welcome her as God's dedicated people ought to welcome each other. There should be no strangers in the family of Christ. There should be no need for formal introductions between Christian people, for they are sons and daughters of one Father, and therefore brothers and sisters of each other. So something also is like many people, it's just a side note, will deny God. And I was thinking, when you deny God, what are you denying? What is the God that you do not believe in? And so God is my Father. God is the Father of the fatherless. And I give testimony to him being my Father, and he gives testimony. He will give testimony to me being his blood-bought daughter, adopted into the family of God. So that's just the end of that side note. And it says, and yet a church is not always the welcoming institution that it ought to be. It is possible for churches, and still more possible for church organizations, to become little closed societies which are not really interested in welcoming strangers. When strangers come among us, Paul's advice still holds good. Welcome them as God's dedicated people, or to welcome each other. So